Well, good Friday morning. Thank you for watching us here on Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. Your time right now is 10:04. I'm Eugene Daniel, and in our studio right now we have producer Sarah Calloway, and we have meteorologist Craig Moeller. He is the man of the hour. He's bringing us some good news because spring is here. I think we're like minutes away from spring actually starting, correct?
We are exactly 41 minutes.
41
minutes. And yes, you'll hear trumpets and everybody will be excited.
Birds are
Parades in the
singing.
street. Yeah, that's right. The bees are doing their thing.
People lining up in the streets. It's a huge thing right now. And so this is the 1046 is
Eastern.
the spring equinox.
Correct.
Boom.
You're ready for me to break this down? Because I don't even know if our producer, Sarah, knew I was going to go in with like graphics and explanation. Did you know that?
I saw them in preview like 10 minutes ago.
Okay.
So
Can't
I had
get
a
anything
little
by
bit
it.
She
of
was
a
starting to
heads
get
up.
excited. Yeah, she's like, all right, Craig's talking equinox. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on. And Eugene, we talked a little bit about this earlier. The reason we have a change in the season, it's all about one thing, really, the tilt of the Earth's axis in relation to the sun. So, you know, the Earth orbits the sun, right? Makes its yearly pass around the sun. And with the tilt of the Earth's axis, and that tilt is, you got to guess, Sarah, you know how much of a tilt there is?
45?
45, that's your guess? Higher or lower, what do you think?
I'm going to say a 33 tilt.
That's not a bad guess. All right, the actual tilt right now is 23.5 degrees. Equator here in Hampton Roads, if it was that much of a tilt, maybe even worse, maybe like up towards Toronto, it would be like living on the equator if we were tilted 45 degrees. No, it's 23.5 degrees. But I will mention this too as we get into this. With spring starting today, 1046, it is all about the tilt, and with the Earth tilted on this 23.5 degree angle, that's going to put the sun's most direct rays over the northern hemisphere. Now, I want to talk to you about this, and we'll take a look at the Earth's orbit of the sun. You can see how, again, it's going to be positioned at various times with the tilt. Sometimes the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. That takes place from the equinox all the way through the summer solstice, and then by the fall equinox, we're back to even, and then from fall into winter, we're actually tilted away, and the southern hemisphere is getting more of those direct rays. I will tell you, all right, that angle of 23.5 degrees, it's not constant. Did you guys know it changes a little bit?
No, I didn't realize that.
Over 60,000 years, there's a cycle. Our tilt changes from 22.1 degrees all the way up to 24.5. So not to Sarah's 45. You don't have to worry about it being
It was getting closer.
equatorial in Montreal. Get ready. No, not quite that. But we do have some fluctuation in that tilt. So something to think about there. It's kind of interesting. In our lifetime, though, it will remain pretty close to 23.5, unless you're like Sarah and you're going to live forever. Anyway, as we take a look at the word equinox, it is Latin for equal nights, okay? Kind of interesting with the sun directly over the equator. You've got an equal distribution of those solar rays north and south, so equal days or equal nights for both northern and southern hemisphere. As we go through these coming months, though, with the Earth tilted, the northern hemisphere tilted towards the sun's direct rays, we're going to see the warm-up, and at its warmest point, the summer solstice, those direct rays will be falling over the Tropic of Cancer, which is, pretty close to the Hawaiian Islands. So that gives you a feel for how far north those, direct rays fall. Now, that's what we have to look forward to. That's why we're into the season, and our season is starting off really nice. Mostly sunny for the first day of spring. Again, that equinox at 1046. We're going to reach a high today of 67 degrees with mostly sunny skies. Winds have been south and southwest about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Now, what do you notice late in the day, Eugene?
I noticed later in the day it does seem to dip off a little bit around
little
6
bit.
and 7.
What's happening with the sky, though? That's what I'm trying to
The clouds
drive
are
at.
in there.
The clouds are creeping back in. Sarah, later tonight, we are going to see chances for showers. They're going to be isolated to scattered. That's not a terrible thing because we actually could use some rain. We are 1.23 inches below average for the year, and parts of the area are in moderate drought. That includes much of Virginia Beach, southern Chesapeake, southern Suffolk, northeast North Carolina. The metro area itself is a little dry, but we're pretty close to average. And the peninsula right now, you're in great shape. No dry conditions up that way. You keep going north up around Accomack County over to the northern neck. It is also in moderate drought up that way. Now, as we take a look, the skies are mainly clear. That's the Thompson Creek Window Company Skyview at the airport right now. We're all the way up to 53. We were down into the 30s earlier this morning, so temperatures are warming. You see the wet weather working down across the Great Lakes, so that's pretty far to the north. It will not be an issue for us today, but later tonight, things change up, and you see it with our futurecast, the clouds on the increase, and eventually those showers coming through. They develop around Richmond at 8, come down the peninsula, let's say 10-ish or so, around Newport News and Hampton, pushing into the south side 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then as we go past midnight, the showers kind of settle down to the southeast. By 3 a.m., isolated showers winding down. We clear it out for tomorrow. We're going to go to the 7-day forecast, guys, as temperatures will be warm through the weekend. We will cool it back down by Tuesday. Another front comes through Monday, gives us a chance for a few showers. Cooler Tuesday, and then warm again Wednesday to Thursday. Guys, basically the weekend looks pretty awesome with temperatures warm and a lot of sunshine.
It's so good to hear that. I mean, we definitely have had quite the winter the last few months, kind of dipping and dipping. At some points, we were in that extended kind of, won't say freeze, but, man, it was cold there for a bit below our average. So getting to the space where we have warmer temperatures, obviously spring, but truly having beach days again.
They're coming.
There are more activities that are happening outside. I do believe First Fridays just announced that they're back there in downtown Norfolk. So people are really, I think, can you hear it, Craig? Celebrating in the streets
there
right
will
now.
be a collective roar, yes.
That's claps. Sarah's clapping.
A lot of folks are going to be excited, guys. Want y'all to have a great weekend, and just know that it will be a little bit warmer. Have a good one.
All right, Craig, we appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. And again, that's great news for us here in Hampton Roads, Virginia, so that we can go ahead and start planning for those outdoor activities and events again, which is a big part of why we live here in this particular region. All right, your time right now is 10:11. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more here on Live Impact News. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us here again, sticking with us here on Live Impact News. A few things that we are waiting for today. We will be having a live interview around 11 o'clock on the SAVE Act. You know, we've been reporting on this. It would change some of the ways in which we go about for our voting eligibility and some of the things that it would require for people to be able to use passports and other means of ID in order to vote in federal elections. Now, this has been a source of high tension between Democrats and Republicans, and has been debated now amongst our congressional leaders. We are expecting it soon to be debated within the Senate more, as well as they will need 60 votes in order to pass that. We're going to have a live interview on the SAVE Act and what it means and what it could mean in our communities around 11 o'clock. But another big issue that we are following right now has been this war in Iran, and particularly our senators here in Virginia have been very outspoken about the involvement of USS Gerald R. Ford, the aircraft carrier, having an extended deployment there, now getting closer and closer to reaching the longest deployment since the Vietnam War. Well, we heard from Senator Mark Warner, who spoke with reporters on a bevy of different issues, including that. And we're going to play for you what he had to say, as there have also been concerns on board of the ship with a fire in one of the laundry rooms impacting many of the sailors and their bedding situations, and just the overall morale and where they are as they are continuing to fight and serve for us bravely there in the Middle East. So we're going to go ahead and let you listen to some of the concerns and thoughts from Senator Mark Warner.
I want to start with the Intelligence Committee hearing we had yesterday that was in the open. This is called the Worldwide Threats Assessment. It is the one time a year where the leadership of our intelligence community comes in public to report to my committee, as well as to Congress and the public at large, about the state of threats to our nation. I'm going to focus on two items that came out of yesterday's hearing. First, one of the areas that I've been extraordinarily concerned about for some time is the security of our elections this year. I'm concerned about foreign influence coming into our election. I'm concerned about the administration itself undermining the integrity of our election when President Trump says, you know, we ought to have the feds take over elections, or Republicans should run all the elections. Clearly counter to what a free and open process would be. One of my focuses has been on Tulsi Gabbard, who is the Director of National Intelligence, someone I didn't think was competent for this position, and voted against her, and everything, her actions since then have confirmed the validity of my vote. You may recall a while back, Tulsi Gabbard, whose job it is to look at, as our nation's top spy, look at foreign countries interfering in our elections. Instead, she's inserted herself into domestic policy when there was a search warrant given to collect some of the ballots from Fulton County, Georgia, Atlanta, about the 2020 election. Somehow she appeared with the FBI, where she had no business of being there. I pressed her on that yesterday. She said the president had ordered her to go there, requested her to go there to observe. Well, that's not her job. And this whole seeking after the 2020 ballots was based on an affidavit from a bunch of debunked theories about the 2020 election that had been litigated and resolved many times. Matter of fact, the Republican Secretary of State in Georgia had said that elections were safe. The fact that she was down there observing, or potentially whether she touched or dealt with the ballots, it gravely concerned me. And we've now got a very mixed message that she said the president requested her, ordered her there. The president, subsequent to that action, said he didn't know she was going to be there, or Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, ordered her to go there. This is still, there's a lot of smoke and concern about her activities focusing on domestic activities when she should be focused on foreign threats. And on the question of foreign threats, she has completely missed her duty to report to the committee about any of these foreign threats. She has not made any of the statutorily required reports. And matter of fact, this was the first worldwide threat hearing since 2017 that didn't even list foreign interference as a priority. And Finally, in testimony, she and others, including the CIA director, indicated, yes, our adversaries are still trying to interfere in our elections. This is a dereliction of duty. It is incompetence. And it is, again, my fear, the beginning of an effort to potentially have either a raw piece of intelligence used as a smokescreen to federalize these elections, since I believe in many ways this president will do almost anything to maintain power, since I think the American people are not supporting his policies. The second half and two other items out of that hearing. One was we also raised the concerns with Director Kash Patel, who's fired most of the top counterterrorism, counterespionage, cyber folks within the FBI. We've had 25% in many field offices of FBI agents taken off of things like counterterrorism that might have been able to prevent the awful shooting we saw at ODU a week ago. They've been taking those agents off of those duties and put on immigration enforcement where their skills are not being used. And we also raised the questions about Kash Patel taking FBI resources to buy a fancy plane and fly his girlfriend around, and also for him being off, partying with athletes in Milan and elsewhere. And at the same time, the FBI budget has been cut about $500 million, I think inappropriate at the best. And then we did press Director Gabbard and others on the state of the Iran war. Tulsi Gabbard has been a long-time advocate against foreign involvement. Matter of fact, her former top deputy, Joe Kent, resigned earlier this week. He was head of the Counterterrorism Center because he thought that there was no imminent threat posed by Iran. That was the same conclusion that I had drawn, that this was a war of choice. There was no imminent threat to America. Ms. Gabbard yesterday was trying to say that the President of the United States is the only person that can determine imminent nature of a threat. That's just factually wrong, legally wrong, policy wrong. The intelligence community is supposed to provide those assessments, and then the president can make a judgment. But she somehow says it's all up to the president. And clearly she was uncomfortable because she literally omitted part of her written testimony that was presented the night before that indicated, in her written testimony, she indicated that she didn't think Iran was moving towards a nuclear weapon. She conveniently did not use that paragraph in her oral testimony. I pressed her on it. She had a lame excuse saying she was just trying to save time, when obviously it was the case she did not want to say the quiet part out loud, that there was no imminent threat and that this is a war of choice. That would have put her in direct conflict with the president. So this same group of people are appearing before the House committee today, and we'll get readouts as that go on later in the day. Staying on the Iran war, where, again, we're now on day 18, 19, 20, somewhere in there, where my fear is we've met none of the four goals the president has laid out. Regime change, obviously not the case. We've got a worse supreme leader than before. Getting Iran's enriched uranium, no way you can do that without boots on the ground. I'm not sure Americans want to send their sons and daughters to a ground war in the Middle East again. Eliminating all of Iran's missile and drone capacity. We have taken down a lot of their missiles. That is good news. But the drone capacity is still out there. And the remarkable thing again here is we are using, the Iranian drones cost $50,000 a piece. We are using missiles that cost $2.4 million a piece to shoot down their drones. We don't have enough of those missiles. Yet the one country that could actually help us in this, the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians have figured out a way at a cost of less than $5,000 a drone to shoot down the Iranian drones. They offered that technology and tools to America in December, and this White House turned them down. So we have not met the goal, and unfortunately, we're not using the best tools possible. And then finally, the question of are we going to destroy all the Iranian Navy? I think we destroyed a lot of the surface ships of the Iranian Navy, but they still got hundreds of these speedboats that can close the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil goes through. And the proof in terms of how effective we've been on that is, unfortunately, the Strait of Hormuz is closed right now, and gas prices in Virginia have gone up 90 cents a gallon since 2.5 weeks ago when the war started. And making this matter kind of closer to home as well is what's happening on the USS Ford and many of the other ships that are in the region that are home ported in Virginia. The USS Ford, which is now about to be on one of the longest deployments in modern naval history. We had a major fire on the Ford. It took a couple days to extinguish. Thank God nobody was killed. But we've now got sailors without beds because the beds burnt up. We've got reports of the toilets not working. You know, when you have a ship out deployed this long, things are going to break. That's why the deployments are usually a shorter period of time. And I think about the sailors who are doing their duty. But when the president says he's going to know when to declare victory when he feels it in his bones, you know, if you're a sailor on the Ford and you hear your commander-in-chief saying it's going to be arbitrarily up to him when he declares there is an imminent threat or when he feels it in his bones that we've done enough, what kind of confidence does that give you who have been, again, on the longest deployment in modern naval history? And then finally, the Florida.
So you listen there to some of the comments that were made by Senator Warner, particularly, as I told you leading into it, some of their concerns with the deployment taking place right now for the Ford. They are, by the way, headed to Crete so they can get necessary repairs as they've been out there. And again, you heard from him. I told you about the laundry situation earlier in their deployment. They had issues with some backups, I believe, from sewage there on the ship. So they've been going through some things there as they have continued to bravely fight in that particular conflict. But we do want to bring you breaking news right now that we're just getting into the newsroom. Legendary actor Chuck Norris has died after he was hospitalized in Hawaii overnight following a reported medical emergency. This is just coming down within the last several minutes. The actor, 86 years old, known for his work throughout the decades, his family confirming that he died Thursday morning. With a statement, they placed this on social media. This is their Facebook page, saying, "It is with heavy hearts that our family shares the sudden passing of our beloved Chuck Norris yesterday morning. While we would like to keep the circumstances private, they say please know that he was surrounded by his family and was at peace. To the world, he was a martial artist, actor, and a symbol of strength. To us, he was a devoted husband, a loving father and grandfather, an incredible brother, and the heart of our family. He loved his life with faith, purpose, and an unwavering commitment to the people he loved, and through his work, discipline, and kindness, he inspired millions around the world and left a lasting impact on so many lives." They say while their hearts are broken, they are deeply grateful for the life that he lived and for the unforgettable moments that they were blessed to share with them. The love and support he received from fans around the world meant so much to him, and their family is truly thankful. To him, you were not just fans, you were his friends. They say there at the end, "We know many of you had heard about his recent hospitalization, and we are truly grateful for the prayers and support you sent his way," saying they are grieving the loss and asking for privacy for their family at this time. An absolute legend within the entertainment industry, Chuck Norris has been, and for many people, he's also a bit of a legend, right? And that's one of the common things I know that even under the comments that are currently in this Facebook post, you know, there's always been, you know, kind of jokingly things that the average person couldn't do, but Chuck Norris could. Norris went from, in his past, from an Air Force veteran and martial arts trainer, of course, to an American icon. He's a world-renowned actor, as you just heard from the family there, saying that even though he had so many fans around the world, he considered his fans his friends. He actually got his start in Hollywood from another well-known, famous martial artist, Bruce Lee, who invited him to play one of the main villains in his movie in 1972, The Way of the Dragon. And soon after that, he became an international icon for many people, being in lead roles in countless movies and films throughout the 1980s, before starring in the very long-running television series Walker Texas Ranger. So this is just something that is just coming in. We're waiting for more information if we can get that. And truly for the entertainment industry and for a lot of people just in general, a sad day. Sarah, I can even think about it for myself. My late grandfather, every day I would go, during the summertime, I'd check in on my grandparents. And, you have a lot of, at least where I'm from, they'll watch what they call their stories, right? They'll watch, their daytime soap operas. My grandfather, he sat in that chair and he watched Walker, Texas Ranger. And there are so many memories that I have just shared with him that I cherish, where we were watching Chuck Norris and those types of films and shows. And I imagine there are a lot of people today that are kind of thinking about that, because whenever your favorite actor or actress passes, it's not the films, it's not just the art, it's the memories that go along with it, So I think that's probably going to be a lot of people today thinking about the legend that is Chuck Norris. So Chuck Norris has died, confirmed by his family, at the age of 86 years old. We'll be back with more here on Live Impact News. We're back here on Live Impact News. I told you another issue that we're going to be focusing in on today is on the SAVE Act, as our leaders in Washington, D.C. are looking to potentially pass legislation that would impact eligibility for voters in the federal election process. And so we do have more from Senator Warner in which he gets into this. Democrats are against the passing of the SAVE Act, saying that it would disenfranchise millions of voters across the country, saying that Republicans who are really pushing for this, the president, in fact, saying that this is a top priority right now, that he doesn't want to pass any other legislation until that bill is done. They are saying that it is needed to secure and shore up our voting process to make sure that non-U.S. citizens do not vote. That is their position. So we do have both sides of this equation right now recently who have spoken on it. We're going to start with Senator Mark Warner, the Democrat out of Virginia, on what he has to say about this bill.
The Senate is occupied by the Republicans at this point on the so-called Save America Act, which is frankly the biggest effort to disenfranchise voters in many decades. Let's go through quickly on this. I strongly support voter ID. in for elections. We've got voter ID laws in Virginia. You've got to present a picture ID. So what is the problem? This SAVE Act would literally say that every individual, particularly women who've changed their names when they got married, would have to go back and find their birth certificate or marriage license and go back and re-register to vote. Or get a passport. About 40% of Virginians don't have passports, and that would cost about $150 a piece to vote, and we'd have to turn over all of our voter rolls to DHS, and I would not trust DHS at this point to not manipulate those voter rolls and knock people off the ballot arbitrarily, knock them off the voting list arbitrarily. This bill is not going to pass. There's not anywhere near the 60-vote majority needed. So instead of talking about lowering cost, lowering the price of gasoline, lowering the price of groceries that have been affected by the Trump tariffs, lowering the price of manufactured goods, again, affected by Trump tariffs, we are wasting time on a bill that's not going to pass and that, frankly, would disenfranchise literally millions of Virginians and tens of millions of Americans. So we'll see when this kind of political theater comes to an end. Gone a little long, but why don't I turn it over to Catherine and I'll start taking your questions.
The first question is from Mitchell with WTOP.
Hi, Senator. Good morning. As always, thanks for joining us. You anticipated my question related to identifying an imminent threat, so I wanted to move on to this report and kind of a confirmation from the Defense Secretary Hegseth today that they may seek an additional $200 billion related to the war. That compares to what was talked about just a few weeks ago of $50 billion. I wanted to get your reaction to that and what you think Democrats might do in connection with that, and also the fact that the war is now apparently expanding to energy infrastructure in Iran and elsewhere in the Middle East.
Well, first of all, remember the Defense Department got a huge plus up, hundreds of billions of dollars, last summer in the bill that provided tax cuts for the wealthy and cut off health care for millions. In that bill, there was also a huge plus up for the DOD. I want my war fighters who don't have a choice in this, if they're ordered into combat by the president on this war of choice, we got to make sure that they are adequately equipped. But if the president's going to start a war of choice, he should have come to Congress and come to the American people and made the case. He did not. So I'm very reluctant to provide additional funding for this war of choice until the president lays out what we're trying to accomplish and when we're going to be done with it. What will meet his goal of having an accomplished mission. And instead, we're seeing, as you point out, Mitchell, that this is getting worse because when you destroy energy infrastructure, whether it's the gas fields in Qatar or the gas fields in Iran, when you blow up the energy infrastructure in the region, 20% of the oil goes through there, but not just oil, fertilizer. Basis for fertilizer comes out of that region. I talked to a farmer in Amelia County a few days ago. He's already had fertilizer costs go up 40%. When you destroy that infrastructure, you can't turn it back on overnight. So I think Americans are going to be soon seeing $4 a gallon gasoline. And even once this war stops, we're going to see it for a long time to come. Because when you destroy the energy infrastructure, it'll take months, if not years, to rebuild. This is what happens when you don't have a clear plan. This is what happens when Donald Trump said, oh my gosh, he didn't think the Iranians would close the Strait of Hormuz, or he didn't think the Iranians would strike the other countries in the Gulf region. If he didn't think that, then he has not been fully briefed by our intelligence community, because everyone in the intelligence community knew that if a war was started, Iran would strike those neighboring countries and close down the Strait of Hormuz. That is their ace card. So again, he was either not briefed by incompetent leadership, or he was briefed and once again just chose to ignore it. But this is going to be a problem, even if there is a declaration of victory that is going to haunt American consumers for months and months to come with record high gas prices. Again, all based upon a war of choice because there was no imminent threat to America.
All right, we'll let that go on a little bit there, but you were hearing from the senator when it comes to the SAVE Act, he believes that it is not going to get through. Again, a big part of that is because in the Senate, they have to get it to 60 votes. The president had pushed on Republicans to lower that threshold, but they have been hesitant to do that for this situation. And the senator there saying Democrats are not going to allow the number of votes needed in order for that bill to get through. So we will see exactly what happens with that. But Republicans still are calling for this, saying that it's something that is needed, saying that we need to make more amendments to the voting, the way in which voting is done, particularly, again, with this, when it comes to who is eligible, making sure that nobody who is not eligible to vote does not slip through the cracks. All right. So we do have, from the Republican standpoint, they spoke on this at length as well. So let's go ahead and listen to why they are pushing so hard for this to get done.
It's interesting that a small handful of states have allowed non-citizens to vote, typically in local elections. Never quite understood why some might think that's a good idea. That's nonetheless their prerogative, as these are states and political subdivisions of states making those decisions. But in the federal government, that is not the case, and it should never be the case. But once in those jurisdictions, they've got people who are registering to vote in those particular elections, again, typically local elections as non-citizens, it raises all kinds of questions. Once they have registered, what happens to their registration? Is there a mechanism in those jurisdictions whereby those who are allowed to vote in whatever local election are prevented somehow from using the same voter registration file to also cast votes in a federal election? The states that allow this, that are doing that, are conspicuously among the states not participating in memoranda of understanding-based agreements with authorities in the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies involved in this, meaning they're not sharing their information, not opening their files to allow for federal authorities to examine them and make sure that those people are being kept separate from the list of voters allowed to cast votes in federal elections. So the SAVE America Act would repair our election security by requiring proof of citizenship to register and a photo ID to vote. This is an important part of ensuring our longstanding promise of one citizen, one vote. When you allow non-citizens to vote, that offsets that equation. It dilutes, it diminishes the votes cast by American citizens lawfully. Our Democrat colleagues have been insisting that this is not necessary. They insist it's not necessary because, after all, it's already illegal for a non-citizen to vote in a federal election. It's a little bit like saying it's unnecessary to require liquor stores to check IDs to make sure that they don't sell liquor to children because, after all, it's already illegal. There are lots of circumstances where it makes sense to do that sort of thing, trust but verify, because if you don't do that, you're not even going to know who might be violating it. This is one of those areas. Now, today, one of our colleagues from Oregon, Senator Jeff Merkley, said that the Save America Act, and this is a direct quote, stabs a knife through the beating heart of our democracy. Really? Well, that's news to me. First of all, it's news to me that given that a policy choice that enjoys the support of roughly 80% of the American people, putting that in law, I don't understand how that would stab democracy in the heart, especially given that this is itself strengthening and securing one of the most important incidents of citizenship, which is the vote. Republicans overwhelmingly support this. 95% of Republicans, roughly 83% of Americans generally, and 71% of Democrats. It's only here in Washington, D.C., within the halls of the United States Capitol, that this is controversial, even among Democrats. Over 170 countries across the world have some form of voter ID requirement. It's actually much easier to identify the very small handful of nations with democratic elections that do not have voter ID requirements. So I would ask the question, why should we allow the United States of America to have election security laws and procedures inferior to those in, I don't know, Moldova or Bangladesh, for example? The Save America Act embodies the mantra often used in this town and elsewhere that we want to make it easy to vote and hard to cheat. You have to have both of those. If you neglect either one, you're going to create problems. If you prefer the former, well, shunning the latter, you will in fact succeed in making it easy to vote. But that sort of betrays and diminishes the whole point of having free and fair elections, and it makes them impossible. So, look, I think that there's only one legitimate reason to oppose this. I have yet to hear a legitimate argument against the bill, which begs the question, do they really just want to make it easy to vote so badly that they're willing or even enthusiastic to just make it easier to cheat? So far, the congressional Democrats have, by and large, focused on arguments that are a combination of being ill-founded, relying on blatant mischaracterizations of the statutory text itself, including and especially the text beginning on page 12, line 22, and following on to the following page, easing the documentary requirements for proof of citizenship, making it so easy, it's much easier than filling out your I-9 form when you start a new job with a new employer, where you're required to prove your citizenship if in fact you're an American. If you're not an American citizen, you're going to have to produce a visa showing that you are eligible to work. But we make it easier than that. We make it so easy, in fact, that even if all of your citizenship documentation papers have disappeared because your house burned down, your dog ate them, your crazy Aunt Madge came and stole them and took them to the dump for some inexplicable reason, or maybe you never had them, you can still go to a state election official, swear out an affidavit just describing the basic elements, the basic factual assertions behind your claim to citizenship, whether it's when and where you were born and to whom, if you are a natural-born citizen, entitled to citizenship by virtue of the circumstances at your birth, or if you're a naturalized citizen, where, when, and how you became a naturalized citizen, and the date, exact or approximate, of your naturalization. This makes it incredibly easy and puts the onus back on the state if you're one of those people who either lacks some documentation or maybe even lacks all of it. They ignore that. And then a lot of the rest of their documents boil down to a combination of things. It's racist and it's sexist. Does any of that sound familiar? You've heard that before. Very often when it does come up, it comes up in a context like this one, where both of those arguments are red herrings. Both of those arguments are rooted in assumptions that are themselves racist and misogynistic, and they're cover for something else. Why are they arguing that when it so obviously does not apply? It's impossible to reconcile with the text of the bill itself to make that accusation. What are they covering for? What's missing when that's the argument that they continue to fall back to like a dog to its vomit? I can't think of anything more racist or misogynistic than those arguments that are being raised, at least not within this realm. You can think of things, but it's hard to come up with anything more racist or misogynistic than the assumptions underlying those arguments. So look, showing ID and proof of citizenship is something that Americans have to do every single day to get a job, to start a job, to board a plane, to open a bank account, to enroll in school, to shovel snow in New York City, to get veterans benefits, to get Social Security benefits, to get a hunting license or a fishing license or pick up a prescription, or to get into the Democratic National Convention, where you have to prove identity with a voter ID, and you have to, in order to be able to participate in the proceedings, show that you're entitled to be there and that you're a delegate. Yes, they do that. So if they want to call this Jim Crow 2.0, then so too is the Democratic Party. And of course, it is not, nor is this. These are red herring arguments. I'm pleased to be here with several of my colleagues. We'll hear from each of them now, starting with my friend and colleague from Florida, Senator Rick Scott.
First off, I want to thank Senator Lee for his tireless effort in trying to get this done. So I've been up here 7 years. This is probably the most bipartisan thing I've ever seen. If you go around the country, I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat or Independent, you want this. There's just a video that came out this morning of DC voters. They want it. So people want this. The only place where they don't want this is in the Senate and the Democrats in the Senate and the House. That's the only group that doesn't want it. So why don't they want it? There's only one answer. They want fraud. They want to allow illegal aliens to vote. That's the only answer. So think about what you show more than anything else. It's not your credit card for most people. It's your driver's license. You show ID for everything. As Senator Lee said, you show it to get hopefully not get a ticket. But if you go to the grocery store, you often have to show it if they're checking your credit card. If you go to a doctor's office, you board a plane. Whatever you do, you're going to have to do this. Buy a lottery ticket in my state, so whatever you have to show this. So it's not like it's in the world to show it. So the Democrats say, oh, first off, it's Jim Crow 2.0. Well, I mean, let's remember they were the party that was Jim Crow, but this is not. There's nothing racist about this. So everybody I know has ID. And think about it, they say married women, it's going to be disenfranchised married women. I'm married to a married woman. I have 2 daughters that are married, and I think they can figure out how to get whatever ID they want, how to vote, all those things. They don't need anybody telling them what to do. They can figure this out. So any Democrat that says that women can't figure this out, they're stupid. So we're on this bill. I think we've got to keep working on this bill. The way I look at it is there's 3 ways to get this passed. The best way is for the Democrats to come to their senses. Come to their senses and say, you're right, we ought to get this done. That's number one. Number 2 is we can find a must-pass bill to try to add it to that. And number 3, we can say, is there a way to do it through the talking filibuster, or is there another way like that? But this is important. This is important to secure elections. Trump secured our border. He needs us to secure elections. The American public wants us to secure elections. I don't think there's anything I've done up here. Maybe as governor, there's something like daylight savings time, but up here that is more popular than getting this bill passed. So I hope we'll be able to get this done. So now let me turn it over to my colleague from Oklahoma, James Langford.
So at the end there, you hear, some of their thoughts on some of the concerns that Democrats say that they have. We do have a story that we put together, Janet Roach reporting on both sides and what really is at issue here and the potential impact that we see for certain studies as well, looking into the potential of people who kind of get caught in the crosshairs of this switch if this were to become law. So here's some reporting that Janet Roach has done, again, listening in and hearing from both sides of the aisle, but also looking at some of the data that we're getting from recent research.
It's called the Save America Act, and it requires proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections. That means producing a birth certificate or a passport, military ID with proof of U.S. birth, or a government-issued ID showing U.S. birth. The goal? Keep non-citizens from voting.
According to, again, studies by these states, and I mentioned Louisiana and Iowa because these are very conservative states, they found themselves that non-citizen voting, registration, and participation represents 0.01% of the entire voting rolls in their states. So the impact is minimal.
According to factcheck.org, a survey by the Brennan Center for Justice shows about 9% of Americans of voting age did not have easy access to citizenship documents. That adds up to 21 million people. Only 53% of Americans have a passport, a big reason why Democrats don't support the act.
Voting is about providing individuals access and democracy, but there are groups that do not want all Americans to participate in the democratic process since the inception of our country, even until now.
It would have a particularly negative effect on seniors, on low-income people, on women voters.
This is an important part of ensuring our longstanding promise of one citizen, one vote.
Republicans support the bill that finally requires voters in all states to show a photo ID to vote.
You show ID for everything. As Senator Lee said, you show it to get, hopefully not get a ticket. But if you go to the grocery store, you often have to show it if they're checking your credit card. If you go to a doctor's office, you board a plane, whatever you do. You're going to have to do this. Buy a lottery ticket in my state. So
So that's a little bit of the breakdown that we have right now. We are going to have an interview in just a few minutes here speaking to this topic in and of itself. But right now what we would like to do, though, is show you the line that we are seeing outside of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. We've been telling you about some of the issues that have been seen at TSA lines across the country, not all, but some, as this partial government shutdown continues. And we know in Atlanta, one of the issues that they've been having, this shot, I must tell you, does not do it fully justice. That line goes back well beyond what you can currently see. And if you've ever been at Hartsfield-Jackson, you know that any type of delay on a regular day can be significant depending on the day. And these individuals here are not moving at all right now, but that line does wrap around quite a bit. And a part of that reason why, again, the partial government shutdown, in which they have not decided on what funding will go to the Department of Homeland Security, that also impacting groups like TSA. And then in Atlanta, they've had 40% at times, 40% of their TSA employees, as people are starting to move, that's a great sign, who have called out at certain points throughout this process, okay? And so that has caused backups in certain major cities, certain major airports. And so that is why we have a crew that is there on the ground there in Atlanta showing us what it looks like. Those people, you can tell, as soon as they opened up that section of line, Sarah, you see how fast they try to get in, hoping to not be the ones that had to stop. So this next batch is going to be pretty excited, like this young lady with the red hair who is currently dancing.
I was just gonna say, I would point her out. Yeah, every time I see it move, it just fills right back up as soon as they get past the threshold.
And you know, I'm fairly sure Hartsfield-Jackson at times would have wait times listed. For those who don't know, I am from Marietta, Georgia. That's where I grew up, went to high school, and so I am very familiar with Hartsfield-Jackson. And right now, if I'm looking at their website, the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, looking at their checkpoint times, the main checkpoint right now, the wait time, you want to give a guess, Sarah?
3 hours and 12 minutes.
No, that's you've been on the over lately, but that would be significant. But I mean, still not great. It's 80 minutes. 80 minutes at the main checkpoint. So if you're trying to get to the airport and you have a flight, you know, they tell you to get there 2 hours before. No, seriously, you might be in the TSA line at this main checkpoint that you're looking at for 80 minutes. There are other checkpoints that are a little bit sooner, but you know, the other main one is an hour. It's 60 minutes. And the one that's the shortest time at this moment is those who go through the international main checkpoint. And I'll give you a little bit of a secret. There have been times where I have gone through the international checkpoint and just taken the inner trolley to get to the main places because it was just easier to get through. It actually saved me time, and I know that's a secret that some people have done over the years. But right now, you're looking at more than an hour and a half there. But again, a big impact has been the real concern that is caused by the lack of funding that has not been agreed to by Congress for TSA and other agencies underneath that debate on how to fund the Department of Homeland Security. So we just wanted to show you that at the moment before we take a quick break. But on the other side of this, like I said, we're going to have an interview talking more about the SAVE Act and what it could mean, why there's a push for it to be done, what are some of the arguments also against it as our leaders in D.C. continue to debate how they should move forward when it comes to eligibility requirements for federal elections. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Thank you for sticking with us here for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. We've been talking about the SAVE Act, the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, being discussed and debated right now in Washington, D.C. amongst our lawmakers as there is a push to bring more safeguards and security to our federal election process. And we've been bringing you the arguments from both sides. And today we have someone who is going to help bring some context to the situation. We have the national chairman of the Election Transparency Initiative, Ken Cuccinelli, who is also the former Virginia Attorney General, who is joining us here this morning. We appreciate you for taking the time and talking to us about a topic that has become quite controversial here within our nation's capital and could impact the country. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So my first question to you is this. We'll just start off, we've been explaining exactly what this bill would do, but could you provide some context for people in as best layman terms as possible how this bill would work as currently stated if it were to be enacted as law?
So as it currently stands, the Save America Act does two things. One, it provides a mechanism for proof of citizenship for people registering to vote in federal elections. Now, it is currently federal law that you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in our elections, but there's no way to enforce it. And that's a result of earlier federal laws combined with federal court rulings. So only Washington can fix that mistake, that set of mistakes, really. And so that's one piece of it, is ensuring American citizens are voting in American elections. The second is the requirement for photo ID as a condition of voting. Now, most states already have this in one form or another, but this would apply it to all federal elections. And both of these are very popular. You mentioned it's controversial in Washington. That's true, it's controversial in Washington, but it is not controversial outside Washington. I mean, organizations as reliably left of center as CNN have been reporting over 70% of Democrats support elements of this bill. So we'll see what the Senate does with it. They are openly debating it to a degree and an extent that is somewhat rare for the Senate, and we're glad to see that. And it really does seem to be moving the needle.
Yeah, it has been quite the debate right now. We were playing prior to bringing you on. We had comments from Democratic Senator Mark Warner, and then we were listening to Republican leaders as well, multiple sharing their thoughts on this as well, similar to what you were saying as far as what they want to see in this. I want to ask you just about the need. You mentioned there wanting to make sure that it is U.S. citizens who are voting in U.S. elections. And I know one of the debates from those who oppose is that this is not as big of an issue that we've seen, but the push has been it could still be influential in elections. Could you expound a little bit on why this is needed at this particular time?
Well, we just saw election fraud in Alabama of maybe 16 or 20 votes that flipped an election. And convictions were just entered in the last week or so. This does happen. I've won one of my races for the Virginia State Senate in a recount. Virginia in the last 20 years has had several recounts at the statewide level. So we've had some very, very close races in our state, and as have others. And the view that we have at the Election Transparency Initiative is that when it's all said and done, we want everyone to be able to trust the outcome of elections, to have confidence that only Americans were voting in American elections, and that the people voting were who they said they were. I think that's why this is so popular among ordinary Americans in polling across the board. CBS just released a poll today that had 80% support. Across every demographic, the support was overwhelming. Even Democrats were 2-to-1 supportive. So I think Americans are used to some of these mechanisms for securing other parts of their life. And I think they're a bit astonished when they learn that our elections are not secured similarly to, showing an ID when you travel, or having to prove you're a citizenship or here eligible to work to get a job when you fill out an I-9 form with a new job. Some basic things in American life, but not for voting. And we hope the SAVE Act will fix that.
We've heard Democrats say that they are not going to budge, and we know it needs 60 votes within the Senate to get by. And a part of what they have been saying is that it could leave millions of Americans who currently don't have, say, a passport, who that they could potentially be left out of the equation here, which brings up the question. There's been a lot of back and forth on what the bill does include and what it does not include. From your understanding, could you break that down to some of the things that you've heard are in it that may not be in the bill?
So you raised one, people won't be able to get a photo ID. Well, they're doing it all over. And interestingly, none of these senators object to real ID requirements for travel, which have been coming for a decade and a half and have now kicked in. We also have citizenship requirements that, in fact, were in a bill, H.R. 1 in 2021, that got out of the House but did not pass the Senate, would have effectively decriminalized non-citizens voting in elections. As a practical matter. It didn't formally do it, but it would take the government's ability to punish people away. And so I keep hearing this, people can't get these documents, but we're doing it already. In Virginia, for example, like virtually all other states, at a point in time when we required identification, when that state law was passed, part of the law required the state government to go to folks who couldn't get to an election office, sort of a mobile election official, and also required assistance, meaning to make this free for anybody who thought they couldn't afford an ID. So states have a lot of experience lowering these hurdles. That's what I did when I was a state legislator. That's part of our job. And to the extent there are unique circumstances on a state-by-state basis, we do expect state legislatures to step in and ease this process. We want it to be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And the Save America Act helps us get there.
So when it comes to, because I appreciate you breaking that down there as well. I know one of the questions I know I personally have Some of the questions that people have is whether or not, again, could they use their driver's license? I think a part of it was if you switch more to a passport, that's a proof of citizenship, which again goes to the proof of being an American along with the photo ID. But some of the concerns people have had is, if you've applied for a passport, sometimes it takes a while. Are there some things, if this were to go through, that may need to change from a time standpoint? Someone gets close to election season and they are trying to vote. They can't get their hands on a passport in amount of time. Are there already those conversations and talks in case this does go through that maybe those things can change from a time standpoint? Would you think that that's something that's needed?
Right. So normally, unless people are having trouble sleeping, they don't want to read legislation. But if you look at this bill, there's passport is the easy one, right? Because you've already proven you're a citizen. It says you're a citizen. There are real ID driver's licenses in some states that identify people as citizens. So there are documents that work by themselves. But just like when we get a new job, there is a whole list of documents that people can use in various combinations. And this isn't just go get a passport to prove you're a U.S. citizen. There are a large number of documents that can be used, sometimes two at a time in combination, like a Social Security card and another identification, for example, just like when you get a job and fill out an I-9 form and at a new company. So this is a pretty common experience for Americans. Does it mean that we couldn't find one person out in the hinterlands who hasn't done this before? No, that is not what it means. But again, we expect states to help ease those people into these systems and to make these things easy to get. To make your vital statistics documents available. I have daughters who've given birth at home. Well, if you're not in a hospital when you give birth, you have to go through different hoops to get a birth certificate. That is true. And that's a state level responsibility. That's where it's always resided. And we expect states to facilitate this. So I would also note that in the bill for things like where there are disputes, people get to vote. Just like under many state laws today, they can vote a provisional ballot and deal with the paperwork after the fact so that their ballot is in, it gets counted, and they're not held up from participating in a particular election. For example, for those states that do same-day voter registration. Now, you can do all of this proof while you're there to vote. There's no obstruction to that. But if you can't, you can still vote and deal with the demonstration of the paperwork after the fact so that everyone's vote does get counted.
I appreciate you clarifying and saying that. And again, your time too. Got one more question for you. And that would just be, what do you see happening next here? Obviously, this has been so highly debated from both sides of the aisle at this point. And you mentioned a lot of people have their eyes on this to see what's going to happen. What are the next steps in your opinion, and what can happen with this?
So let's just briefly look back at kind of where we've come from. Chuck Schumer is the Democratic leader in the Senate. And a week ago, he was calling this whole effort Jim Crow 2.0. Now, even the Washington Post has issues with things like that because it's so outrageous. Well, this week he's saying, well, we could agree to voter ID. So I think the public debate and the American people learning what is and is not in this bill. A lot of myths are being thrown out there. For example, it'll make it hard for married women to vote. Hillary Clinton keeps throwing this one out. Completely false. And walking through some of the issues that you and I talked about, all real live issues, all solvable, all already exist in other parts of our lives, and how that plays into this bill. I think as those get discussed, debated, and the truth is laid out there, progress is being made. For example, the Democrats gradually coming around on voter ID, something that even their own base supports, so no surprise. But I'm hopeful that as this goes forward, I understand they're going to debate through the weekend, that more votes will be picked up and that people will talk more about solutions to the implementation along the lines of some of the questions you had for me. And I think even senators need to hear that. And everybody watching, you and I think ought to call Tim Kaine's office and ought to call Mark Warner's office and tell them you want your elections secured with these basic steps of making sure only citizens are registering to vote and that everyone has a voter ID to participate in our elections. Those are very basic things, and folks should call their senators and tell them that's what they want.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time here today because you're right. I think there are a lot of people who have questions about it because a lot of the messaging that has gone out. So we appreciate you taking the time to dive into it and answering my questions here this morning.
Well, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. Again, Ken Cuccinelli, the National Chairman of Election Transparency Initiative. We thank you so much, and seeing how long this may go, and we'll have to have you back at some point, okay?
Glad to do it.
All right. Take care, sir. Have a great day. Appreciate you. So good to hear from him. Again, I think, the more and more this conversation is out there and debated, people can get a sense of what is particularly in the bill and what they can expect to see. Again, right now you have from Democrats who have pretty consistently said that they are not fully willing to give up the votes needed to get across that 60. But again, we'll see what happens when the vote does come across. They do, at this point, need that 60 threshold in the Senate for this to move forward. Okay, I think it is good now for us to take a quick break. It's 11:16 this morning. We appreciate you for sticking with us and watching us here on Live Impact News. We'll be back in just a few moments. Welcome back to Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. We definitely appreciate you watching us if you're watching us live right now. And hey, listen, there are a few ways you can do it. If you're watching us live on YouTube, thank you. But I always want to make sure that I let you know you can download 13 News Now Plus. That's our streaming app. You can watch us on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. It is free, of course. But you do that because it's not just this stream that is accessible there, but we actually have exclusive content that you can find only on our streaming app. So it'd be great if you would consider downloading that. But again, we appreciate you watching. Well, right now, I can tell you what we have been watching. The President of the United States, at this moment, he is currently at the podium as he's presenting the Commander-in-Chief Trophy to the 2025 Navy football team. As you can see, a lot of them behind him. But I want to pass it over to him because you don't always know exactly what he could say, and we might get some insight in some of the things that have been going on that even include the Navy, including what's happening in the Middle East. So let's go ahead and listen into President Trump.
This incredible team on the win of this trophy. It's not often that this trophy gets presented. You have to have a very special year to get it. And I'm going to sign the executive order right now and then invite Coach Newberry up to say a few words and talk about what a great team and what great individuals they are. So, Coach, I'll sign, and then you take over, okay? Thank you very much. This is not an auto pen. Can you imagine taking it and say, would you please have this signed? Somehow, I don't know how they got by that, but it didn't work. Let's go. It's a good one. We rate them. That's close to a 10, maybe a 10. See, fellas, you can see it first. That's pretty good, right? And what I'll do is I'll give these out also. If you can get them down to the office, you can get that.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for signing that executive order, protecting the sanctity of the Army-Navy game. It's a game with a soul, and it deserves to be protected. Thank you very much. Thank you to you and your staff, your gracious hospitality, and for making today's ceremony possible. Thank you to the distinguished guests and everyone in attendance for being here to recognize this team and this exceptional group of young men. On behalf of our players, our staff and their families, our superintendent, General Michael Schulte, and our athletic director, Michael Kelly, it is truly an honor to be here. We're grateful and humbled to be back again. As I shared last year, it's been our goal to return to this stage many times during your tenure, Mr. President. There's no higher honor in our program than standing here representing the Naval Academy, the entire brigade of midshipmen, the Brotherhood, and all the men and women who serve and have served in our Navy and Marine Corps. These young men understand that wearing the Navy uniform comes with a responsibility greater than football. Each day they strive to live up to the core values of honor, courage, and commitment, and the standards of those who came before them. Leaders of character who have gone on to serve our country with distinction. What they accomplished this season is a direct result of that ethos and mindset. The players here on stage and to my left in the audience are some of the very best our country has to offer. In just a little over 2 months, these 28 seniors standing behind me will graduate and commission as officers in our Navy and Marine Corps under your command, Mr. President. They will do so with character, discipline, and the values that define this institution. I also want to recognize our fellow service academies, the United States Army and the United States Air Force. The rivalry we share is among the greatest traditions in college football, but it is grounded in deep and enduring respect, because we know that one day many of these young men may stand shoulder to shoulder in defense of our nation. Commander-in-Chief's trophy represents the commitment, discipline, teamwork that define the future leaders and warfighters of our armed forces. Every day, our players balance the demands of Division I athletics with the responsibility of preparing to serve as officers. That challenge forges the character this trophy represents. In our view, it is the most meaningful and honorable trophy in all of college sports. To our families, alumni, and the countless people who support the Naval Academy, thank you. Your belief in these young men and what this institution stands for makes moments like this possible and special. Mr. President, thank you for hosting us today and for your continued support of the men and women who serve our great country. This time, I'd like to bring our two captains, Landon Robinson and Blake Horvath, up to present you with a couple of gifts. Thank you.
Well, first, Mr. President, it's just an honor to be here.
This is very heavy.
I know.
Strong neck.
Like you said, well, you're the healthiest guy here, so you got the neck to do it. So just want to say thank you so much for having us here. Absolute honor. And last year, I was hesitant to say it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience, right? Because I knew we'd be back this year. So I'm glad I can now say it's a twice-in-a-lifetime experience. And just couldn't have done it without our whole team here, right? Our support staff, from the strength and the trainers to all these guys and all the guys who are still at school right now in class. Thanks to all of them, and just for everybody for supporting us. And, go Navy, beat everybody.
Absolutely. First off, thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to be here. Blake said most of it, but I'm just so thankful to all my teammates and all my coaches for all the hard work they've put in. It's very hard to go 11-2 in a season, but I couldn't be more proud to play for Navy football, and I couldn't be more proud to represent the United States Naval Academy. So go Navy, beat Army forever.
We're going to see you at the Oval. Now, anybody does not want to go to the Oval, please raise your hand. I'll see you in the Oval. I have a feeling you're going to do that. Thank you. See you in a couple of minutes. Okay? We have something. Thank you, everybody, very much.
Okay, there you have it there. The president issuing an award there, presenting it to the Navy midshipmen after a great football season that they had. The Navy receiving the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, which goes to the winner between the three teams that we know, right? Navy, Army, and the Air Force. The Navy taking the winner in both of those victories. But not only that, they had a great season, another back-to-back great season. 11 wins, at one point ranked, I think maybe finished 23rd in the Associated Press coaches poll there. So a great season. But you can see there are other reporters that are trying to ask questions of the president as well, in part because of what is happening globally and involves the Navy as well, as we spoke earlier about our Navy sailors from right here in Norfolk who have been a major part of the efforts in the war there in the Middle East, and with the USS Gerald R. Ford. And so the president there, though, wanting to focus, at least at this time, on this group of men and what they were able to accomplish here over this last season as they prepare for another one. We did want to take that. But speaking of the war, okay, from one leader to another, we did hear from Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking on their updates when it comes to the war with Iran. Of course, the U.S. and Israel on the same side here against the Middle Eastern country. We're going to play for you some of the words that he had to say, speaking to reporters from the Israeli standpoint on where they stand when it comes to where this conflict currently is.
אחיי ואחיותיי אזרחי ישראל, אני גאה בכם. אני גאה על העמידה האיתנה שלכם. אני יודע שזה קשה לשהות בחדרי הביטחון וקשה לשהות במקלטים. אני מבין את הקושי עם הילדים, עם הלימודים, עם עם העסקים. אני יודע כמה קשה לקשישים וכמה קשה למילואימניקים. חבריי ואני בממשלה, אנחנו פועלים כל יום כדי להקל עליכם, כדי לפתוח את הלימודים וגם את המשק, לעשות את זה בהדרגה, לדאוג לפיצויים הולמים.
All right, here's what we're going to do, because he does speak in English. We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to get it to the point in which he speaks in English there to give the updates. So give us just a quick moment. We'll be right back on the other side of this here on Live Impact News.
Come on. President Trump always... The death cult in Iran is trying to...
Okay, thank you for your patience. We do have those remarks now from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in English, and we'll go ahead and play that for you now.
America and Israel are acting together in Iran with great determination and unprecedented strength. Operation Rising Lion is designed to remove the existential threats posed by the Ayatollah regime, the regime that has waged war against America and Israel and the people of Iran for 47 years. It chants death to America, death to Israel, and it delivers death to its own people. Our goals are three. One, removing the nuclear threat. Second, removing the ballistic missile threat, and removing both of these threats before they're buried deep underground and become immune from aerial attack. And third, this means creating the conditions for the Iranian people to grasp their freedom, to control their destiny. Today, the Ayatollah regime is not only attacking America, not only attacking Israel, not only attacking the Iranian people, it is attacking the entire Middle East and beyond. They've attacked civilians and American assets in Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, and they've even attacked through their proxies Cyprus and Europe. We've warned for decades that their ballistic missile program would be used to attack these targets far and wide, and if they're not stopped, that's just the beginning. The death cult in Iran is trying to blackmail the world by closing a key international maritime route, the Straits of Hormuz. It won't work. Israel is helping in its own way, and intel and other means, the American effort to open the Straits of Hormuz, rather. But I want to ask you to imagine how the Ayatollah regime would be able to blackmail the entire world if they had ballistic missiles with nuclear warheads. Just imagine what they would do. Look at what they're doing now and imagine what they would do if they had ballistic missiles, international range ballistic missiles, and nuclear-tipped warheads. Just imagine what a great threat that would be. So today, Israel and the United States are protecting America, Israel, the entire Middle East, but I venture to say the entire world. Despite the fake news that is unfortunately being spread since the start of the war 20 days ago, we are winning and Iran is being decimated. Iran's missile and drone arsenal is being massively degraded and will be destroyed. Hundreds of their launchers have been destroyed, their stockpiles of missiles are being hit hard, and so are the industries that produce them. That's important. In Rising Line, we destroyed missiles and we destroyed a lot of the nuclear infrastructure. But what we're destroying now are the factories that produce the components to make these missiles and to make the nuclear weapons that they're trying to produce. We're wiping out their industrial base in a way that we didn't do before. Iran's air defenses have been rendered useless. Their navy is lying at the bottom of the sea. Today we hit the other part of their navy in the Caspian Sea. Their air force is nearly destroyed. Iran's command and control structure is in utter chaos. And I can tell you that there's still more work to do, and we're going to do it. And I want to close these opening remarks with one other fake news, and that is that Israel somehow dragged the U.S. into a conflict with Iran. Does anyone really think that someone can tell President Trump what to do? Come on. President Trump always makes his decisions on what he thinks is good for America, and may I add, I think what is also good for future generations. In this case, those interests are absolutely clear, and so is the clarity of our achievements. Together in close coordination with President Trump, the close coordination between America and Israel, our militaries, our intelligence services, we're achieving goals in lightning speed. But I want to say another word. It's been said that for 40 years, I've been saying that Iran is a danger to Israel and a danger to the world. That is true. You know who else said that? President Trump. 47 years ago, when the Iranian thugs took over the American embassy, he said how dangerous this regime is. In his first term in office, he didn't need any convincing. He said the Iranian nuclear deal was the worst deal that he'd ever seen, and he walked out of it. Right before his second term, before he was reelected, I went to see him in Mar-a-Lago. The first thing he said to me was, "Bibi, we've got to make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons." He said that to me. I didn't say it to him. He didn't need any convincing there either. Now, why did he say that? Because for more than 4 decades, this regime, as I said in the beginning of my remarks, is chanting, "Death to Israel, death to America." But they say Israel is only the small Satan standing in their way. The great Satan is the United States of America. And these ideological fanatics, these lunatics, define their raison d'etre, their reason for being, is wiping out Western civilization and America that leads it. They have claimed the lives, they've maimed and wounded thousands of Americans in Iraq and Afghanistan. They killed the American Marines in Beirut. They bombed your embassies. They tried to assassinate the American president, Donald Trump, not once, but twice. Now they blackmail for oil. Just imagine what they would do, what they're capable of doing, if these lunatics had nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them to every American city and every European city and everywhere around the globe. This is a danger for the entire world. It's certainly a danger for Israel. It's certainly a danger for America. We see eye to eye on that. President Trump and I, Israel and America. But I think if people are honest, if leaders are honest, they would understand that we're not only fighting our fight, we're fighting their fight. I speak to dozens of world leaders. Dozens. They all know that. And privately, They all say that. They say that privately, but I say it publicly. The world owes a debt of deep indebtedness to President Trump for leading this effort to safeguard our future.
Thank
Questions?
you. We'll now take a few questions. The first question is from Zach Anders from Newsmax.
Mr. Prime Minister, Zach Anders, Newsmax.
Want a transitional leader that will have a transition. You don't want to replace one Ayatollah with another. You don't want to replace Hitler with Himmler. So I think the question is, will the conditions be created for such a change? I think it's too early to say. And I think in the final account, as I said, it's up to the Iranian people to show that, to choose the moment and to rise to the moment. We can create the conditions, but they have to, they have to exploit those conditions at a certain point. It is often said that you can't do revolutions from the air. That is true. You can't do it only from the air. You can do a lot of things from the air, and we're doing, but there has to be a ground component as well. There are many possibilities for this ground component, and I take the liberty of not sharing with you all those possibilities.
Would you recognize Pahlavi if the people keep chanting for him in the streets?
Well, I'm not going to say who specifically is going to be there, but I think he's been a force for good. He's been trying to get the people to unite for a transitional government, a democratic transitional government, or a moderate transitional government. I hope that it comes to being. I think it's too early to say.
Next question from Richard Engel from NBC News.
Good to see you again, Mr. Prime.
So we're going to keep this up, but just to be clear with you, the questions appear to not be playing over the audio when they're coming in, but we can hear the responses given by the Prime Minister. So that is what you will hear, even though we cannot hear all of their questions.
Well, I think we have concrete goals, how to do it, how to end it. We want to, as I said, decimate the ballistic missile program, which we're doing, decimate the nuclear program, which we're doing. I think that those are goals that are achievable, but I'm not going to put a schedule or a stopwatch on it. I think we have goals that have to be achieved, and we're not counting the days. But I will say this canard that we drag the United States into it is not just a canard. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I mean, I think President Trump said it best, and I said it as well many times. There's always a danger in acting. But in conditions of existential threats, there's a much greater danger in not acting. What do you think would have happened if America did not act now? Just imagine what would have happened. In a few months' time, no more than a year, Khamenei, still alive, would have ordered the beginnings of the new nuclear program and the reconstructed ballistic missile program to move underground. Now, it'll take them a little time, maybe a few years, but you can't reach those programs. And they develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, okay? That means missiles that can hit Chicago and New York and Florida and Texas and California. Oh, but they don't have it yet. That's what people said. Right, let's wait. Well, just let them do it, Just wait and let them do it. You won't be able to do it. It's the last moment. No, it takes a little time. I mean, you had a few months to prevent them from doing it and to just decimate these industries and perhaps achieve this transitional government in Iran. So you'd sit back and you say, well, it's not going to happen in the next Thursday, so let's not act. I tell you that there's enormous risk in not acting, much greater risk than acting. And if you think that the oil markets are in trouble today, think of Iran with nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them. Then think of the blackmail that you would endure.
Okay, we're going to go to the next question.
No, I think only fair enough. This is a serious subject.
What is the question?
One question.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. That's, go ahead, ask.
Of course, but you have there are oil fields around the world that are burning. Gas prices are going up. The war is popular here in Israel. Is not popular with many Americans. My question was, how do you see this ending? Not why, not even when. What do you imagine the day after?
Well, we have achievable goals, and I'm not going to speak about the full battle plans that we have with the United States. We're well coordinated with them. I will say this, that once we achieve our goals, then I have argued, I think, and Americans understand this very well because we're real partners. I think that what has to be done is to have alternative routes. Instead of going through the choke points of the Hormuz Straits and the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, in order to have the flow of oil, just have oil pipelines, gas pipelines, going west through the Arabian Peninsula, right up to Israel, right up to our Mediterranean ports, and you've just done away with the choke points for forever. That is definitely possible. So I see that as a real change that will follow this war. But I also see this war ending a lot faster than people think. I think you have to, in war, you have to grit your teeth. Churchill said that democracies suffer from the slumber of democracies, as he called it. And they only wake up, he said, they may wake up only when they hear the gong, the jarring gong of danger, is the way he put it. Well, you're hearing the jarring gong of danger. The jarring gong of danger is Iran gets nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. That's not a jarring gong. That is an apocalypse. Don't let it happen. And the function of leaders is to stand and tell people the truth, even when things are uncomfortable. That's what you have to do. And you don't always see the danger in time. But leaders are tasked with the task of seeing danger in time and acting on it. And I hope that in time, people will see the wisdom and the courage of President Trump's decision and his leadership, and the fact that we're working together. America is not fighting for Israel. America is fighting with Israel for a common goal, to protect our future, to protect civilization against these barbarians.
Next question, one question, Guy Azriel from I-24 News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Guy Azriel, I-24 News. President Trump said today he did not like the Israeli strike on the Iranian gas fields. My question to you, was the President aware of Israel striking that gas field? Did you approve it? And please, if you may, do you see any signs that the Iranian regime is collapsing? And what assurances do you give the Israeli public that if it does stand on its feet, we will not see another wave of a war with Iran in maybe 5 or 10 years?
Well, I'll say two things. Fact number one, Israel acted alone against the Slawiya gas compound. Fact number two, President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding out. What do we see? What happens if are there any signs that the Iranian regime is cracking? A lot of signs. A lot of signs. I wish I could divulge all of them, but I see that. But will I tell you, will I commit right now that it's going to collapse? I can tell you that we're working to create the conditions for it to collapse. But it may survive, it may not. If it survives, it'll be a lot weaker. There's no comparison. It'll be at its weakest point, shorn of industries that it built over decades, death industries, shorn of many other capabilities that they have, and equipped with the experience, with the knowledge that if they try it again, they'll be hit again even harder. I cannot tell you of the technological developments that we are engaged in to anticipate this and other possibilities. But Israel has shown that it can do wondrous things. And in partnership with our American allies, we can do amazing things, amazing things. As Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, said, these are the two most amazing air forces in the world. It's the two most amazing intelligence services in the world. It has the capabilities to confront these barbarians and to outstrip them, both in innovation and, when necessary, in lethality. It's directed, it's targeted lethality. It's going against the killers and as much as possible to avoid civilian casualties. We have those capacities. We're building them for the future. That is what safeguards the future. You know, if people want to be naive, that they don't see the kind of world we're living in. In this world, it's not enough to be moral. It's not enough to be just. It's not enough to be right, you know? One of the greatest writers of the 20th century, someone that I admire a lot, was the historian Will Durant. Now, he wrote many volumes. I read most of them. He also wrote The Lessons of History, very brief, 100-page book, in which he said, well, history proves that, unfortunately and unhappily, Jesus Christ has no advantage over Genghis Khan. Because if you are strong enough, ruthless enough, powerful enough, evil will overcome good. Aggression will overcome moderation. So you have no choice. If you look at the world as it is today, you have to be blind not to see that the democracies led by the United States have to reassert their will to defend themselves and to oppose their enemies in time while there's still time, before the jarring gong of danger wakes them up and wakes them up too late. This is where we are now. The fact that people don't see that, the fact that a lot of the news media are harking on a lot of fake news, but also a lot of short-sightedness, and do not see the historic period and the historic struggle that we are engaged in now, doesn't obviate these truths. We have to be strong. We have to be armed. We have to be more powerful than the barbarians, or they will not be merely at the gate. They'll crash our gates and destroy our societies. That's what Israel is doing now with the United States. And I'm very proud of the fact that the Israeli people are standing strong, that the Israeli army is standing strong. We rose from October 7th. Our people, our soldiers, rose like lions. But in protecting ourselves and in joining with our great American friends, we're also protecting the entire world.
Thank you. Next question, Tom Burridge from ABC News.
Hi, Tom Sufi Burridge, ABC News. Prime Minister, given the escalation of attacks on U.S. allies across the Gulf, given the spiraling energy costs, the high costs in general, the U.S. service personnel killed in this war, many Americans are asking that question, whether you misled their government into starting this war, and for how long should Americans keep paying the price?
Well, I misled no one, and I didn't have to convince President Trump about the need to prevent Iran from developing its nuclear program, putting it underground, and being able to launch nuclear-tipped missiles at the United States. He understood that. He explained it to me. I didn't explain it to him. And I think that our partnership is the only way to avoid this catastrophic development. The loss of servicemen is painful. Early on in my military service, a fellow soldier died in my arms. I lost a brother who fought terrorists, led the historic Entebbe rescue. The cost to bereaved families is enormous, and I sympathize and send the condolences of the people of Israel to these families and to the American people. Freedom is precious. It has its costs. But if you're not prepared to defend it, if you're not prepared to resist the tyrannies that are trying to arm themselves with the weapons of mass death, you will have no future. And therefore, we're doing what we can. As far as oil prices rising, spikes, you know what a spike is? You know what a spike is? It goes up and goes down. The Americans are working very hard, and we're trying to help them in every way that we can, to open the Straits of Hormuz. And if they succeed, which I think they will, then oil prices will come down. But if you say, all right, I'm suffering right now, and people are, then I shouldn't do anything. I just succumb to the blackmail, let Iran get on with it, let them develop nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles to deliver them to New York and Los Angeles. You're going to be blackmailed in ways that you can't even imagine. I think what this war has done is unmask what Iran is. You know, we've said for years, look at these people. They're doing things that normal regimes do not do.
Again, there you were listening to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu being questioned by reporters there as we continue this war between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. We do want to end our stream here today with a couple of items that are breaking. Of course, we told you earlier in this broadcast that famed international actor Chuck Norris has passed away at the age of 86. His family confirmed this on social media today that he died yesterday after being hospitalized in Hawaii. They have not stated the cause of death, saying that they are trying to be private at this time, asking for their space as they grieve, but definitely thanking all of his fans and anyone who has contributed to his career over his decades on our screens, both big and small. Chuck Norris has passed away at the age of 86. And we're still seeing those long wait times at airports across the country. Not all, but certainly some, including in the major cities. You're taking a live look in a bit here at the checkpoint for TSA in Atlanta, Georgia, at Hartsfield International Airport there, my hometown. And right now, those delays are still rather long, but shorter, according to the airport's website, than they were just about an hour ago in time. A large portion of this has to deal with funding not being approved for the Department of Homeland Security, which also means it impacts TSA. A lot of those TSA workers are now going another week without getting paid. And many at the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport have decided not to show up to work. At some points, there are reports saying that there are about 40% of the TSA agents who had not reported to work here in recent days. And so that is obviously going to impact a place that is already known for having long lines. So if you are heading to the airport, you want to check what the status is of the place you're flying out of to make sure that you make it there in time. All right, that is all we have for you here for Live Impact News on this Friday. Remember, spring has officially begun, so please go out. It's going to be great when it comes to the weather here in Hampton Roads. Up next, you have 13 News Now at noon with Ashley Smith, and then from 1 to 3, Connor Reel and Naya Campbell will be back in this chair for another edition of Live Impact News. But on behalf of myself and producer Sarah Calloway, we hope you have a wonderful, great, safe weekend. We'll see you on Monday.